Welcome to the Night Tube. I'm Stephen Knight, and it's a great pleasure to welcome the return of author Lucy Brown. Lucy, how are you doing?
Amazing. Thank you for having me. It's been years.
It
I
has.
think we spoke years ago.
It has, and a lot's changed with you specifically. I'm doing the same shit. Nothing's changed for me. Just stuck rotating round
No,
on the
you've
same spot.
improved.
Yeah, I've got a beard. That's it. That's all I've got to show for it. In the intervening years, I hit puberty since the last time we spoke. Yeah, so I mean, you're an author now. I mean, how would you have described your former life? What would you have said you did when you were working in Tommy Robinson's camp? What would have been your official title then in that capacity?
Be like free speech activist or something, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
Like producer. Tommy Robinson producer just doesn't make sense. It just sounds like it's like a non-job,
I
doesn't
think
it?
the
But
Tommy Robinson producer is probably his mum, isn't it? I think that's how
yeah,
that's how that works.
yeah, or Ezra Levant. But yeah, no, I don't know. It was just working on just digital activism, I suppose I've called it, or just stuff that just as it started coming online, just being part of that, which now is just everywhere.
Yes, you guys. I think some of the work you were doing with Rebel, it was kind of. I think it's been stolen as the template now for a lot of what's out there, and I suppose the
I
right
keep
leaning.
seeing that.
Yeah. So we'll definitely get onto that. I mean, the reason I reached out to you again is because you've just released a book called Hate Club, which kind of chronicles your political journey from someone who I think was kind of left leaning. You write about, supporting BLM and maybe Antifa a little bit, to having this kind of journey to the right, mainly from what I can tell, based on speech related issues. So I think you speak at the start of the book about how the culture and climate seems to have changed almost overnight in terms of what you can speak about freely. It seems like a lot of approved opinions were enforced on the rest of us. And when did you start feeling that kind of pressure from a sort of consensus of people who had the right on views?
I think it was probably around Brexit. I think that just did. I think a lot of people were not really that political. I mean, obviously, people were political, and what was happening in the working class areas was creeping in. Um, However, I think that was the real like lighting of the beacon, something's wrong moment, and I think just it probably. I think most people naturally went to the left. I think it was just kind of a default, almost like a hippie thing or like a hipstery thing. Like you just, in my circles anyway, middle class, Cambridgey type, it you were just kind of blanket liberal, but it didn't really mean anything. It was just almost like a fashion trend.
Yeah, I mean, I still count myself as somebody on the left. A lot of people will laugh when I say this, 'cause I think to the mainstream left, I'm pretty much far right. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Islam. I think immigration's important. Not convinced
Yeah.
men can be women. That kind of thing tends to get you thrown in the right wing basket for some reason. And I don't quite understand why. Have you got a good sense of where you are on the political scale now? Would you say you've moved?
Well, no, that's the thing that I found funny about it. I was like, I sat down to try and write this thing, and I'm thinking, any publisher is going to want a. I went down the evil rabbit hole and realized that they were all evil, and here's why they're wrong. And I just can't look at what's happening. I don't think any sensible person can look at what's happening, like, 1,000 random men a day come into it, and our country just on its knees and be like, yeah, 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 the right wing are all totally wrong because, because some of them are bastards, basically. I think that's just a stupid, like, infantile way of thinking about it. But yeah, I still say, if you saw me in a, out and about, I think I look and dress and still act quite liberal, which is weird because then you've just got this mad Twitter that I have where I'm just saying deport everyone, but I'm just kind of sick of it. But it's still that liberal humor, like it's that kind of. I think that's what pisses people off is when you don't actually change. I wouldn't say, oh, I went far right, now I'm not again. That's just nonsensical. It's just no, there were problems and there are still problems.
Yeah, I also think an authoritarian tinge to it, isn't there? In terms of you must not say this, you must think this. I think the left really did dominate that space, didn't they? Where they made the rest of us feel like we couldn't just have open conversations.
I think that's the thing that they didn't get then and still don't get now is that the joke was on them. And it's very easy as well when you're terminally online, which I definitely was a lot worse back when. And you're in your 20s and you're like, oh, got big ego and stuff. But it's really easy to get yourself wound up by some of these far left accounts, and you end up just being like, okay, well, I'm Hitler there because they're already calling you a Nazi for the most basic stuff, like in terms of Islam, women's rights, caring about FGM and stuff, and suddenly you're a fascist. And you're just like, well, if I'm a fascist, then I guess I'll just keep being a fascist. That, and it just becomes the joke's on them. But yeah, it's frustrating that they still don't get it. I mean, they've had nearly 10 years to catch up,
Yeah.
and they still seem to think that the right wing is just this evil sludge people that if you touch them and you become a Nazi. I don't know what what mindset they're living in, but I'm disappointed.
Yeah, I think there's a huge lack of curiosity or an understanding of maybe meme culture as well. I mean, I've got some fairly legitimate issues with when the right goes too far. Obviously, I'm sure you have, but there was a sort of
Yeah,
movement where, I mean, I spent a lot of my time going to street protest, and I'd make a beeline for people with like Pepe flags, because
yeah,
that was reported far and wide as some really like hateful far right Nazi adjacent, and a white nationalist symbol. And every time I got a microphone to one of these people, they would always tell me, "Absolutely not. I'm not a racist. I just like to wind up the libs." And that happened
yeah.
loads. In fact, I mean, we'll get onto this because you speak quite pointedly about hope not hate in your book. I seem to remember I was at a protest interviewing somebody about this flag, and I've got a microphone in his mouth, and he's telling me he's not a racist. He just likes to wind up the left, and the media misreport on it. At that exact same time, someone from Hope Not Hate snapped a picture of us and posted it with something like the far right symbolism of ultra white nationalist Pepe flag flies at the, so it's kind of playing into their hands. So I mean, is there an inability of like is there a lack of willingness to understand the other side from both the left and the right then?
Yeah, big time. I mean, again, when I first came back to Twitter, I had so many gripes with the right, and I still have lots of gripes with the right. I think there's a bit of like just bizarre women hating stuff that goes on in like the Groiper dimension of that, and sometimes their takes are wrong. Sometimes they're reacting to a clip that's 10 years old and stuff like that. Like that does happen. There's some goofiness. There's some trilby wearing, fedora wearing types knocking around, but they they're not in power. That's the thing. I mean, currently you've got left in power. I would even say the Conservative government wasn't exactly conserving anything, was it? So the right almost it's their last stand is to have something to laugh at while their countries are being destroyed, and they know that they can't say anything for fear of being imprisoned, probably killed in prison, and that's quite serious. Like that's the real thing that you're laughing to let off steam because it's such a horrible situation. You're reading all these crimes happening every day at an alarming rate, and it's like it's a letting off steam as well. Which ironically, yeah, if you can say an edgy joke, sometimes that's better because if you bottle it up, you could end up joining some dodgy right wing fashy telegram group or something and making loads of weird friends and getting on a watch list. And yeah, we want to not do that.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that looms large over all of this is your relationship and history with Tommy Robinson. Now, I have a kind of mixed view on him. I would think it wouldn't be unfair to describe him as Britain's most influential activist. A lot of people get a bit funny when I say that, but I mean, in terms of commanding an audience and getting people to organise, I can't really think of an equivalent in the UK. You might be able to correct me on that. So the man does clearly have influence.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's hard to think of I was trying to think of a bigger person, and yeah, you're right,
Yeah.
I think.
And I think I've always tried to be fair in the sense that, when people were attacking him as being an Islamophobe or something like that, I would defend him. I'd be very critical of him when he'd misrepresent the truth or, get charged with contempt of court and things like that. So that brought a bit of ire from his fans to the point where I've kind of just sort of checked out with him now because it just doesn't seem worth it in terms of the response you get online. And if anyone knows anything about that, it's certainly you, for sure. And I just thought, after experiencing that, with him when you worked with him and the fallout from that and how much grief and hate and death threats and horrible things you got, to the point where you chronicle this nervous breakdown you have in the book over it, which is understandable. What made you then think, I think I'll get all this down in the written form, release it, and kind of invite the possibility of this happening all over again? It must have took a little bit of courage on your part to think I'm gonna write this up.
Yeah, well, it was a funny few years. I mean, like I kind of explain it at the end is like there's no real like happy ending for me. I don't drive off like in the end of Greece in a car into the sky. You just are like I was just living with my parents for a few years doing like random jobs. COVID comes around, fell into all sorts of drama. Like just didn't learn my lesson. think I just was still telling myself like I could be an activist, I could be an activist. I know you can't, like, have a break. And I was looking at it and I was like, I'll write this and then it'll all be okay. I think I was deluding myself. I was like, people will know the truth. But by then it's like COVID's happening and no one actually cares, and you just fall into like this abyss. And it kind of reminds me of I think it's in Chicago where she wins her big court case, but then someone gets shot the same day and she just gets swept in the away with the kind of news cycle and just no one knows. And I was just in this limbo land, and I was like, right, so currently I'm working on jobs. I can't do any online or any kind of activism because of this horrible reputation that's been following me for years. It's been getting worse and worse. So I was like, I don't know what to do. So I finally just sat down and thought, yeah, well, I've got, nothing better to do. But then it was coming out kind of bitter. It was too bitter and it was too like, oh, I'll write this and then my life will be okay. And I think that's the wrong way of just going about any project. I just think I needed to kind of walk away from it, deal with some personal stuff, meet my boyfriend, and all this, like, do some life. I went and did some life. So I wrote this very bitter, angry thing where I went through my old diaries, and then I was going through like news articles and Instagram posts and my everything. And I was like, trying to put it all really chronologically, but it was like kind of unreadable. And I finally sat back and looked at it and I was like, okay, like there's some stuff here, but I kind of think it should be like good and like like something I'd actually want to read, it's not just like a horrible emo memoir. Um, so yeah, it was a lot, but I think it's because there's people kind of like, oh, especially Tommy seemed to assume that this was going to be this big horrible jab against like everything, and like taking him down or something. But I think there's a lot of stories from our time together that I just wanted to encapsulate because they are so funny and so many of them are absolutely true, like they happened, and people don't believe them. And I would have these phone calls with people and they just were like, no one's going to believe that this happened to us. And I was like, well, we may as well like write them down and then at least someone, I don't know, can have a chuckle out of it.
Do you feel on some level then you might have a little bit of residual loyalty to him? Because I mean, you are very critical of him in the book, but it comes across in a way that seems fair. And I kind of,
Yeah.
you kind of wonder if a lot of people who'd been through what you've been through would be, speaking a similar way. I mean, do you feel like perhaps there's still a little bit of a protectionist attitude towards him from you?
Yeah, I think that's maybe a fatal flaw that I have, is that I tend to sort of try and see the best in people. Even I talk about being in an abusive relationship as well. I mean, I've made friends with my abusive ex long after we sort of broke up. Um, but this is like mentioned in the book, by the way. But like when I was 21, I was in kind of a dodgy situation. But I think it's in my nature to try and figure out why people are like that and try and find forgiveness and find a way to move past it and have like a healthy way of kind of addressing it in your head. And it's not just Tommy I'm like that with. I'm like that with quite a few people and friends, and maybe forgive too easily. But it's just because I kind of feel like I see people and I kind of can see that sometimes that they're their own worst enemy, and I find that interesting. And yeah, there's still, I think when you look at the past version of you, you have to be honest and say, well, I didn't hate them then, did I? I kind of, we were all friends. We were we were all friends for a bit. We all got on, and that was a nice time. And it's a sad thing for it to become a morph into this like perpetual. It's like when a rock band splits up. There's always two of them that are just like fighting for the rest of their lives. Morrissey and Marr, and all these people, and it just becomes part of this big long stupid thing. But yeah, people I think hopefully will be surprised that it's just going back and just talking about like the good stuff. And as far as I thought at the time, I don't know what I think now, but I think there is a good person under there for all his faults. I'd like to think that there's a good person under there that's just maybe activism full time is just bad for your mental health in general. I don't know. Maybe it's too much pressure to put on people.
It's got to be, because I think in terms of, I mean, we've spoke about him being the most influential activist in Britain. He's quite possibly one of the most hated people in certain circles, instantly recognisable. He's got the far left. He's got to look over his shoulder for the far left. He's got to look over his shoulder for Islamists. It seems like it can't be a pleasant experience. I mean, it might be worth just circling back to something now that you got me thinking about from reading your book, because you had a steady day job before you got into all this. And it feels to me like you were possibly one of the first people, like the canary down the mine, in terms of somebody becoming internet famous and having strong opinions or views, or certainly moving in them circles, and having to balance that with your employer knowing about it. And where was the line between protecting you as an employee and saying you've become too much of a liability, if I can use that word, for their reputation? We're seeing a lot of that now. I know the free speech union's doing a lot to protect people for expressing their opinions outside the workplace. What do you think needs to be done in this area now? Because everyone seems to have an opinionated digital footprint now. We're all mini celebrities, and we also have day jobs, a lot of us. So where's this balance now with employers, do you think?
It's tough because I think I left my job just before it got too obvious that I was beginning to have like a public persona and then like this private kind of employment life. Um, it's really hard because I can imagine most employers, if they found out that you were part of, say, I don't know, just any group that's outside a hotel, for example, will probably rush to conclusions and sack you before they get any dirt on their hands or something. So it's I can imagine it's very difficult at the moment. I honestly think that in terms of legalities and stuff, I do recommend people use ChatGPT or whatever sometimes if they're thinking of saying something really spicy, maybe just like pause for a second and see if you can write it in a way that's not going to get you in with like a knock at the door.
Right, that's a good idea.
And just bear in mind that, like there was the Waitrose guy that got fired and everything. And I don't know if maybe that you just have to bear in mind that what would your employer think if they saw this? You just have to kind of keep that and bear in mind that the courts are probably going to look upon it in a certain way. It's just being careful. I'm still careful around. I've got quite a lot of left-wing friends or like liberal friends, and honestly, I just don't talk about politics.
I think that's another thing as well. I mean, we're all living politics 24/7 now, when we never used to. We constantly have a supercomputer in our pocket that's giving us minute by minute updates on any story you care to follow. So I think there is something nice about checking out, I think, and not having that phone in you. Not a question, just a little rant about telephones. So I mean, people really want to hear about your relationship with Robinson, and how did you first meet him, and when did it become? When was the idea struck that you'd work together?
It was around 2017. I think it was fairly close to around the Westminster attack, and that was a huge video. I think most people will probably remember. It was almost one of the biggest ones that kind of he came back on the scene because he was outside. He was pointing at the bridge, and it was all very dramatic. I mean, it was like a film. It was all very dramatic, and he was like, "This is clearly an Islamic terror attack." He was like, "There's always ISIS fighters that have come over, and we need to sort this out." And it was around this time that I was kind of meeting George and Kaylin, who were his video producers, and they weren't even with Rebel yet. I think they were being paid like a stipend per video or something just to go out and do his camera work. But it was just slowly around between Westminster and Manchester attacks, and I was slowly circling in and like meeting Kaylin and George more often. And then we all kind of met together and just seemed to have the same idea, which is this is incredible. We need to capture it on film and document it. Which, like you say, I mean, people are doing it now. You've got Robert Jenrick going around in Calais doing incredible work and basically putting yourself in danger. I guess that was the other part of it. There was a bit of almost like a stunt quality to it. Like, we're going to go here and do this crazy thing and see what happens. And we're going to wind people up and they might hit us, but we don't care. Like, that was quite new back then in terms of politics, in terms of merging politics with that and kind of being unafraid to say things that, were very, like, there was no mainstream media talking about it at the time. If you think there was no GB News, Talk TV / Talk Radio, I don't even know if they were quite addressing some of these things. It was all very tepid, like, oh, we can't do that. And then you got Tommy just being like, this is an Islamic terror attack, and it was just cut through the bullshit, like, straight through. And I think, it was just from that, and I just had this pull towards me. I was like, we need to stop this. And everyone in my life was like, no, we don't. Stop being racist, and you're like, you nearly died in London Bridge. I had a friend whose boyfriend was there hiding from a jihadist. Oh, he's fine. And you're like, okay.
Isn't it weird how much the Overton window shift? Because if you were talking openly about immigration in what 2017, even a bit later than that, you were decried as a racist. But now Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister and leader of the Labour Party, is saying things publicly and posting things on Twitter that's kind of indistinguishable from UKIP policy back in the day. So it's really weird how quickly the public perceptions change. Is it just a case of immigration's not unnoticeable now? You can't kind of dig your head in the sand about it. It's just apparent the effect it's having on the country.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing about it is as well, I would say that Keir Starmer coming out and admitting that this was all a big experiment, open borders experiment done without your consent or knowledge. Yeah, we did it. That pretty much was the message that we were trying to get out to the public the whole time. And you could say the same about Generation Identity, who were around at the time. I think they're now banned and prescribed. But probably a lot of these other groups, even if you look back at the BNP, some of the stuff they were saying has been vindicated by Keir Starmer, like whatever your thoughts on them. And, it just goes back to just Taylor's oldest time. It's like a bunch of people see this bad thing happening, try and raise the alarm, get killed off by the state, a new group forms, da 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 da, same thing. And then he just comes out and admits it. Yeah, that was true. We lied. And you're like, people have gone to prison for this. Like, it's maddening. But then at the same time, you're kind of vindicated. But then you're like, why do we all have to ruin our lives and lose all of our friends and just completely kamikaze ourselves for you to just come out and say this? I mean, it's a bit rich. But yeah, he basically just admitted everything the right wing was trying to say.
Okay, well, I mean, just swinging back to your relationship with Robinson, because you worked incredibly close with him, traveling. You visited his home, different countries, things like that. When did you start to kind of notice that this idea that his fans have of him, of this kind of, it's almost like a messianic kind of figure, like a prophet, or, the great British bulldog, saving us all from the invaders and things like that. And when did you kind of feel that his public profile or the perception of him didn't really match the private man? Because you got to see you got a unique insight where you got to see both sides of this.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of similar to probably to being any celebrity, which is probably you get known for your greatest hits and like try not to resent them, I guess, because yeah, maybe he's in a bad mood and someone wants a selfie or someone wants to punch him. I mean, it's just one of those things, like you said. Um, he's very recognizable, and at some point, walking in public does become a problem. Um, I don't know what to say because it's kind of, again, you're right. I have this thing where, contrary to popular belief, I see like the person behind it and the flawed person. I can see he attacks me big time, but like also just that is his nature, is to attack and protect, his what he's doing. I don't want to just come across as like, being bitchy or whatever. So I would say that it probably is quite hard just having this martyr image, because it's almost bigger than celebrity. It's not just, oh, I like your songs. It's, you are going to save my bloodline,
Yeah.
my heritage, my lineage. You're going to save the country. You're in their head. You're going to be prime minister one day, like James Bond. You're amazing. And yeah, and underneath that is someone who might be having an off day. Might just want to go and hang out and with his kids, or get drunk or whatever he wants to do. So I understand that, and I saw it up hand, like close hand, and I don't know. Yeah, it was conflicting. It's conflicting because you also, like you say, you're in a tight bond. There's me, two other guys, and him, and then a couple of people, and we are almost living together in a car. I mean, it was kind of like being on the road. Just you end up just hours and hours and hours living in a car, and you get to know people just on a very, I don't know, almost like a sibling level, don't you? When you're just that close and smelling each other's, BO or whatever, or just being tired and just eating crisps and talking shit, just talking absolute shit. And there's that part of that I can't quite, that I kind of grapple with, because you got like terrible nasty man did all these terrible things, blah blah blah, and then you've also got like, yeah, but do you remember that thing that was funny that time when when this happened or whatever? Um, Am I making sense?
Yeah, at times you do want to strangle your siblings, don't you? But you would kind of be very protective of them if anyone else came for them. And I suppose it's not a million miles away from that. I mean, from what I can tell in your book, where you recount the Day for Freedom, which is a big event organised by you and Robinson and Kaelin and George. And I think the kind of idea behind that was to invite speakers who had a claim to being censored, who had unpopular opinions and were being shut down by various, either media outlets or governments or whatever. And I was actually present on that day. I had managed to get one of the press passes, and I was in that kind of little section in front of the
Oh,
stage. Fancy. Yeah,
quite.
it didn't take me long to realise actually I was trapped, which
Oh no.
yeah, but I mean, I saw some of what you recount in your book, so I think the falling out seems to hinge on whoever or didn't invite Ali Dawah to speak. Now, you maintain in your book, Robinson was very blasé about it and agreed and said, invite him, I don't care, kind of thing. Then on the day when Ali made his way to the stage with Mohammed Hijab, I saw them both approaching and the fallout. Tommy Robinson maintained he'd never said any such thing, and that became a big point of contention between you. You were sent out there to deal with it on your own, and things became quite aggressive. Can you just kind of tell us what happened there?
Yeah, I mean, just for the record, Ali Dawah is a pillock.
Yes.
Like he's just always has been. Um, and I don't know where, like, Tommy just decided that I just fancy him or something, or like we get on because I think I used to troll him a bit and just kind of take the piss because I thought he was just a kind of a creep. And his wife wears a what's it called, a whiteboard? Have you seen this?
What? Does she not speak?
There's a video on you can you can look it up on YouTube. His wife uses a whiteboard to talk to him. She writes out messages as a YouTube video, and that's how
Twat.
she divorced. And Mo Hijab has just lost his. He's exploded, hasn't he? And
Oh, yeah.
he's now lost his lawsuit against Douglas Murray.
That was
Anyway, so
great reading.
two twats that I'm not like big fans of, and oh yeah, invite him. So yes, my version of events is what I think happened because George and Caden witnessed it as well, which is Tommy was like, yeah, invite him, it'll be funny, and then didn't really think about the fallout, and then kind of assumed that we'd telepathically know that he was like decided to change his mind a day or so later. So yeah, so we end up with these unwelcome visitors that end up just getting completely pummeled, and then Muggins here is like trying to be all Pocahontas in the middle, running in, oh guys, stop it, and then becomes a big falling out. Um, and yeah, it was a mess. It was a total mess. It's really stupid talking about it as well because it was so long ago, but everything hinges on that. And you look back at it, unfortunately, it just is like the crescendo of this working together thing in the story, and it just had to be written about, I thought. And I've read Tommy's book Silenced, and he absolutely maintains that I invited this guy. Like, oh, I don't know what got into her. She really liked him. She thought he was great. And I'm reading this like, for God's sake, it's just, kind of who cares at the end of the day. I was reading a bit of it to a friend, and she was like, you know what's funny about all this is that it actually doesn't really matter. Like you put on a really massive free speech event in central London. Like that should have been the takeaway of it. But you guys are bickering about this Muslim guy that got beaten up. I mean, it's just stupid. But anyway, yeah, that was the big crescendo. Was we did this big event. This guy turns up. Everyone wants to beat him up, and it's all my fault. And it all gets blamed on me. Ugh, the dog everyone blames their farts on. That's what I became.
Bloody Brown. That's it again. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, it was quite an unpleasant kind of splitting between you two. He essentially fired you. From accounting from your book, you were never really paid anyway. It was mostly unpaid labour. So that's a whole different issue. But I mean, Tommy maintains as well, which I'm sure you have. I know you've seen, and he's reiterated this since online, that you are kind of some kind of lovesick groupie who's kind of had the hots for him and couldn't quite deal with the rejection, and that's why you're lashing out now. That's why you're writing these books and clinging on to Tommy in any way you can. And I mean, what is your response to that?
Um, for a start, he's not my type. Sorry, mate. But I mean, I've written in the book, and I think being quite fair about why that's ridiculous. And I'll leave it to the reader. You can go and read, and you can see what you think. But um, it's kind of a bit what's the word? It's just a bit odd that he's kind of saying that I'm in love with him, but he's only started saying that since I've kind of come back online and been like, oh, I'm talking, and I just think it was more convenient when I was out of the picture, and I did go offline for about 6 years or so, like I have been in the shadows of the internet, just cast aside, and I think I also just got sick of living there and being like, I'm being punished for something that I haven't done still, and this is just getting tedious. So in a way, it felt like if I don't write this book, I'm just going to be stuck with all these kind of rumors forever. So in a way, it was kind of to clear the air, so that if people in the future can ask about it, I can just say read my book, much easier than going into detail. But yeah, in terms of being in love with him, no. Uh, like I'm all right.
That
Um,
ship sailed.
I don't really know what to respond to that because it's just quite childish. Like I'm carrying another man's child. I'd have to be quite unhinged to. I mean, it speaks to how unhinged he thinks and his followers think I am. That I'd be sitting here like 9 months pregnant, being like, "I love you, Tommy. I'm going to write a whole book." I don't know. I just find it a bit weird.
I wasn't sure whether to mention that, but congratulations. I would not be sat here talking to me 9 months pregnant. That's some commitment in this. If I get a headache, I'm not talking to people. So you made a better
Oh,
stuff than me for sure. I think yeah. So you're due at the end of this month. Is that right?
well, I'm apparently due next week, actually. I mean, I'm just like any day now.
Wow.
So I'm just kind of, I mean, so a couple of people have been like, oh, congratulations, because I dedicate the book to our son. He is healthy. We've had a little scan today. He's doing well, but he's still in my
This
belly.
is
Uh,
Wolfgang. Do you mind me? Is it Wolfgang? Do you mind me saying the name?
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
wasn't sure whether to bring this up.
Yeah, no, of course,
Yeah.
it's out.
Of
It's out.
course, it's in the book. I assumed you were on child number
Yeah.
two. Then that's that when I read the dedication at the end. Okay,
Ah.
this makes sense now. Great name. Okay, I mean, just to pivot maybe to other blonde agitators. Lauren Southern's re-emerged these last couple of months, and she's writing a book as well. And you spent quite a bit of time with her. And she recounts a trip she took with Tommy Robinson to meet the Tate brothers. And she essentially says she was raped by Andrew Tate in that book. She doesn't use the word rape in the part of the book, but I mean, that's essentially what she's describing. And she kind of reiterates the fact that she feels like she was abandoned by Tommy Robinson when she was there. She talks about, he's off his face on cocaine the whole time and was pretty much useless and kind of left her alone. And I just wondered, what's your perception of this? Because I don't think you were not on that trip, was you? Just to be sure.
No, I was back in, yeah, I was in London or Cambridge or somewhere, and then I was there literally the day they got back, or oh no, was it a few? I think it was just after they got back. I think they did take a trip to a UK hospital before I met them. So they had been back a little bit, but yeah, that was after the Romania trip, and it's funny, you can kind of read two angles of it from partially in Lauren's book and partially in my book of someone that lived it and someone that saw a bit of it.
Yeah, I mean, what was your perception of that in regards to how much Tommy Robinson knew about it when he returned, and kind of did he offer any support? Was he kind of critical of Andrew Tate? Did he maintain a relationship with him after that? To your knowledge?
He was livid. I mean, absolutely believed that Lauren had been sexually assaulted. He was disgusted. He didn't want anything to do with him. He was like, I'm disgusted with him. And I think Tate wanted to come to the Day for Freedom, and we didn't. Tommy was like, I don't want him to come, fucking arsehole. He was really just believed, and maybe in his own weird way was trying to help Lauren by giving her drugs. I don't know. I don't know what goes through the man's head. But didn't wasn't his best hour, put it that way. So yeah, it kind of struck me as very irresponsible. Um, and in hindsight, she was 22, which I forget how young she was sometimes because she came across very mature and very, she's a very smart girl. Um, but reading her account as well, and you're sort of, I felt like I was, that Breaking Bad meme where he's in the car going, no, that meme.
Hmm. Yeah.
No, don't do that. I felt like reading her chapter, like reading a lot of her book actually, or just like, no, Lauren, don't speak to them. They're
Yeah.
bad people.
Yeah, I mean, the age thing really does. I mean, come through. I mean, you're young, quite a bit younger than me, and you was especially young when you first set out on this journey, and it's a lot to handle. And I mean, it might be worth talking about that as well, because I mean, we shouldn't necessarily hold Tommy Robinson responsible for his fans, but there is a rather vocal contingent of them that are very unpleasant and quite nasty. And I know you've certainly experienced that in a way that most people haven't. And I mean, first of all, do you think he could do more to let his fans know that kind of thing's not on? And what's that like for you to just kind of wake up one day and it must feel like the whole world hates you? You feel like you're in imminent danger. Somebody's going to, knock on your door any moment. You're constantly looking over your shoulder. I don't think people quite understand how much that kind of public shaming and attack can really impact somebody. So maybe you can just explain how that happened and what that was like.
Yeah, I mean, I saw like quite a good TikTok the other day, and it was talking about something called betrayal trauma, which apparently is a thing. Um, and it said it's kind of like someone chucks you out of an airplane while you're in the air, and it totally shocks you. You weren't expecting it, and you're falling, and as you turn around in the air, you look up and you see them in the airplane or the helicopter, and they're looking down at you and they're smiling, and it's that moment of like what and you're just completely. And it was very much like that. It was like I've been cast aside, like exile, right? Get her out. And I'm definitely not the first because I've had so many people message me, men and women, mainly men actually, but like lots of women as well. Some of them have been genuinely threatened. One of them had a bunch of them come in her local pub, and there's genuine violence behind some of these accounts. They will go up to someone and be like, all right, what you got to say then? And it's very scary. And obviously, I don't fit in. Obviously, I'm a middle class, soft, calls the police, doesn't understand what snitching is, just completely different world. So I think they really didn't like me at all, zeroed in on that. Um, but yeah, I do think there's something to be said that maybe he could take control of the fact that there are 1.4 million people that will go after someone because I've seen it even happen to Charlie Peters on GB News because oh well you weren't doing the grooming gangs right at the beginning, Tommy was, and stop trying to take the credit. And so you've got someone that's like objectively doing good work that's kind of being halted by all these people telling you terrible. It just keeps happening. And even in terms of like I this is I feel like I can talk about the old stuff. His career now is just his. I don't know. But I will say, I don't think he does himself any favors being like, here's a picture of a journalist, let's harass him or her, or like going after Camilla Tominey or Julia Hartley Brewer, and then sometimes they have to have security outside their office for a couple of days, and I think it's funny because it's like when it happens to him, he gets really upset and then he'll just do it back. But when he does it back, I mean that's like a lot of people, and some of them will absolutely they'll go too far. They'll track you down. They'll send things. Some of them were leaving notes outside Mike Stutchbury's house. I don't know if you remember that
I
side
remember
plot
him.
years ago. There was some far left guy, and yeah, they were telling Andrew Tate turned up at his house with a car. Um, but he did, I mean, that does cause people to get really bad PTSD and have to move house or whatever. And that can be a big legal bill because you're a public figure and there's like an incitement level there of like, I think you just have to think a bit more carefully because you basically have an army of people that will go after and do your bidding. And yeah, that can bounce back and that can snap back like elastic and become a nasty court case.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned the grooming gangs there. So, I mean, that kind of ties into something else you spoke about in the book, which I wasn't aware of. And you recount the fact that Tommy Robinson was campaigning on behalf of Lee Rigby for a little while. Now, Lee Rigby, as most people will know, was the British soldier who was, decapitated by two Islamic loons in Woolwich. And, that obviously inspired a lot of people in the country, shocked a lot of people as well. And I think you recount in your book that Lee Rigby's mother actually rang Tommy Robinson and informed him to stop using Lee Rigby's name for clicks. And there is a little bit of that with the grooming gang scandal as well. There's a lot of debate as to how much Tommy Robinson was involved in that, because a lot of people will say he exposed it. He brought, justice in a lot of ways. Now, to my mind, he was speaking up about it and banging the drum at a time when a lot of people weren't, and that was, very brave. It was a unique voice, but in the background, there were actually a lot of journalists doing the hard work, a lot of legal people, making things move forward with it, and they don't tend to get the credit that he gets, or they will say actually on many occasions Tommy Robinson's involvement just by association almost hindered things. What's your perception of just how much influence he had in the whole grooming gang scandal?
To be honest, again, I can't say because this was all kind of EDL era, wasn't it? So that was 2009 they started, I think. Um, so I think it would be hard for me to say looking back because at that time I would have been like, a kid growing up, no idea about this stuff. And I feel like it's hard to go back and say so historically, isn't it? And we've lost Andrew Norfolk's now passed away, but obviously he did a lot of the reporting as well, like the first 1400 Girls Rotherham report. And yeah, I don't doubt that there's loads of unsung heroes in that. Um, and I don't doubt that Tommy probably did hinder some of their stuff. But then again, the tub thumping makes sense now that here we are decades later, and we know that just this, not only the scale of it, but the fact that it's still happening, the scale of the cover-ups, that they don't want us to, they really don't want that kind of worms open by the look of it. How many people have been, are still working that have been corrupted. Um, so it's a really tricky one because you've just got this horrible situation where, of course, someone like Tommy is going to exist from that, is going to come from that, that premortal ooze of our horrible, corrupt country, and he's just going to do what he's going to do. And to some extent, he is a creation of that corruption, if that makes sense. I think that's what people never seem to understand, and they really want him and people like him to just be, I don't know, these contemporary villains that just exist and they're just evil and they wake up one day and they just hate brown people, whatever they think. But no, he very much was a result of people not covering it properly, people being too scared to speak out. And you're going to get this brash, working class, simple message just coming through, which is like, enough is enough, and so it's a horrible, tough tapestry, isn't it? Because I can absolutely see him. Like God knows, I've got my gripes with the man, and like that's probably one of many of them. Is like wading in and making it all about him, and being just a bit of a showman, and not really thinking about like the legalities of it. Because sod it, we just need action now. And then you've got the reality, which is long, boring court cases, which take ages, and sometimes you do get victims that get placed in horrible situations, re-traumatized, living next door to their rapists, and I don't know what's worse, the system or the Tommies of the world. I don't know which bit's worse because I mean it's all kind of horrible.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, it's definitely a symptom of the establishment trying to sweep really serious crimes under the carpet, and the unwillingness of the general public to either discuss it or allow a discussion. So obviously, like you say, it's completely unsurprising someone like him would emerge from the working class. I mean, there is this perception as well, and you do detail a lot of it in your book, that Tommy's in a lot of ways out for himself. Every time he's involved in some sort of controversy, and from what I can see, legal controversy, usually self-inflicted, this contempt of court example being one of the latest examples. He's been getting in a lot of hot water for libeling a school kid very recently as well. And every time that happens, the kind of begging bowl goes out, an email will go out, there'll be an appeal. Tommy Robinson needs your help to save him from state persecution. It's always this enemy of the state thing. He's never really done anything wrong. It's just the state trying to shut him up and end his life, essentially. Now, I just wanted to get your perception of where the line is there, because you've recounted this kind of excessive drink and drug use when you were out on the road with him. The kind of flashy cars, jewelry, clothing, things like that. And a lot of that would have, I imagine, come from people thinking they were chipping in to support his political cause. So how much of this is him making money off his own back or making money for the cause?
Well, that's another thing that I think is quite serious. I think a lot of money has gone into um, just his lifestyle, I think.
And knows.
And knows, yeah, I mean, sorry, but people seem really surprised. Tommy Robinson does coke? Yes. I don't know if they're American or something, but yeah, quite a lot of. I mean, who am I to judge? But I mean, that is money wise,
But it's expensive,
not great.
is the point, isn't it? I think. I mean,
It's an expensive habit. Yeah, exactly. It's like, I drink too much wine, like no one's perfect. I
snap.
even talk about I do a bit of drugs in the book, sorry. My dad had to read that, which is great. Uh, but it's the money side of it. It's expensive. It really is an expensive habit. And the amount of money that could have gone into like a GB News style outlet, for example, like years ago, that does grate on me a bit and it does jar me a bit. Because I look back at what the events in the book are about 7 or 8 years ago now, and I'm thinking that's 7 or 8 years that we've had. You've had millions in the bank, all this time and opportunity. Got rid of me, got rid of the old Judas middle class lefties, got rid of them, and you're like, right, I can do it all myself now. And I'm like, where's the, how hard is it to like rent a studio and get some cameramen or something? Or just, I don't know, maybe I'm just being optimistic, but in my head, I'm like, if I had that money, I would just, I don't know, like set up some kind of, oh, like what everyone's done. You've got trigonometry, you've got all these different outlets, you've got Andrew Gold doing well and all these people. But that could have been done easily with all that money. Where's that money gone? That's the thing. I'm like, where's it gone? Sorry, but it's a lot of money. The amount of stuff that we can do. I've made websites for, was it 15 quid a month? And you can just do this, or just online stuff, and I've got a, you got a camera on eBay for a couple of hundred quid. It really, you don't need millions and millions. That's the thing that annoys me a bit. You've got all these citizen journalists going out, Jack Hadders, and all these Wesley and everyone, and they're doing great work on just like a GoPro. You don't need loads of money. And that's what kind of annoys me. It's like you've got so much. Like, where's it gone? Yeah, not into the cause. That's the thing. It doesn't seem like that anyway. I mean, I know you've got this big protest coming up on the 13th. Not trying to shit on that. I actually think, okay, yeah, march through London. It would be nice to see British flags in London for once instead of every other flag in the world. And I do think it's nice the idea of like bringing people together and everything. But yeah, I lament the amount of money that has, I don't know where it's gone, that's just disappeared. I do, that does irk me a bit. And I don't know why that some people are just like, well, I'm happy to fund his lifestyle. I'm absolutely fine with that. If he wants to go and do coke, he can go and do coke with my fiver. Fine by me. Okay. Um, but but it's, I don't know, desperate times, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And just keeping with that in mind, something that, in your book that really resonated with me and was quite, kind of tragic in a lot of ways. You recount the fact that he had an Amazon wish list that people could purchase things off that would go directly to him. You speak about how the garage in his home was just full of Amazon boxes, and you were going through a lot of these. And in one of them, you found a packet of batteries with a note on there that essentially said, I want to support you, but this is the only thing I could afford. It's the cheapest thing on the list. Words to that effect. And that's quite heartbreaking, really, isn't it? Somebody's got absolutely nothing, but there's a sort of emotional manipulation aspect to it where they think they're saving the country, they're propping up a hero, and really a packet of batteries doesn't mean anything to someone like Robinson, probably.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. That's why I quite like writing, because you can actually sit down with those feelings. Do you know what I mean? You can actually unpack them and you can remember. Because I don't know about you, but I find it quite hard speaking to a camera. I think I speak kind of bad, but whatever.
I've got to listen to my own voice back. Editing this for an hour later. That's hell on earth. You're doing great. You sound great.
Sorry.
But yeah.
Sorry
Yeah.
for future you for having to edit this, but no, I
Yeah.
do find it. I think I don't know if it's like autism or what, but like my words come out wrong and everything. Whereas when you're writing, you have a chance to actually sit down and actually explore that feeling. And I remember that I still have that piece of that gift thing from Amazon, and I still find it now and again. I think I kept a scrapbook, and I'm like, yeah, there's a guy somewhere that was like, this is my last fiver, or like I can't afford this, but it's more important to me that you guys are out there saving Britain, because we can't do it because we're stuck in a job. And that is the sad bit of it. And again, like, I do interviews like this, and maybe I'm a bit too jolly, or maybe a bit too trying to not be a dick. I'm trying not to just like completely shit on the man that is, at the end of the day, the reason why we're even having this discussion, you could even say the reason why I am the person I am is going through these experiences, and it just is what it is, and that's life. And maybe everyone has someone in their life that they're going to be shaking their fist at until until the end. I don't know, but there are moments like that you find yourself being like, I'm actually kind of angry. Like this is actually a tragedy. Like this is depressing. These are people's lives and people's hope, and you're kind of playing with it, and that's not right. So yeah, there's a serious undertone to it, for sure. Um, which is why, again, like I kind of grappled with, as I mentioned, having all these journalists trying to just kind of use the fallout just to kind of publish probably just a bunch of wank, to be honest. I mean, they're just stuff that no one's going to really care about. They're never going to change anyone's mind in the Guardian about Tommy Robinson. Like your readers already hate him, and his followers don't like you. So I don't know why, they seem to think that like, oh yeah, we'll do this big article and we'll use your quotes and everything, and it just doesn't. I just don't really know what they want. Like there's definitely things to be said about this world, but it's about the messenger and who people actually listen to.
Well, I mean, maybe we've just got time then to get into something which, from reading, I think you actually kind of make an apology in the book, and that's John Sweeney, who you and Robinson and kind of plotted and stitched that man up royally. He is or was, I suppose, a well-respected journalist at the BBC. Made a lot of documentary films. I think he made a very, very prominent, famous Scientology documentary. I think he's doing a lot in Ukraine, or was doing a lot in Ukraine. But he worked on the flagship BBC documentary Panorama, and you and Robinson hatched a plan once he reached out to you. He was taking you out to dinner and trying to get you to spill the beans on Robinson, get some dirt essentially that he could then use. Unbeknownst to him, you were recording the conversation and leading him down a path and getting him to admit things he probably shouldn't. I get the impression a lot of booze was flowing at the time. Maybe you can explain just what happened there with John, and have you spoke to him since? How do you feel about the whole thing in retrospect?
Yeah, I mean, I won't say too much because I don't want to spoil the ending.
Sure.
But yeah, you'll get the truth about Panodrama, which is like what that whole sting operation was. And I think there was still a lot of confusion around that. I've tried to make it. I mean, I'm still confused. I'll be honest with you. I'm still confused about that project. But yeah, it was supposed to be really about Hope Not Hate. About Hope Not Hate's involvement with BBC Panorama, who they've been involved with Panorama for donkey's years. I mean, I don't know if you've heard of this, but there's an old TV show called Stadiums of Hate, and it was a panorama show called Stadiums of Hate, and Hope Not Hate were brought in, and they were trying to find racism in football, I think in Poland or somewhere, and they had Nick Lowles. They shipped him in a helicopter with binoculars, and they called him his hate binoculars, so he could go and check if anyone was whispering the N word or saying the N word to any of the footballers. And anyway, they have just been these kind of weird de facto producers around Panorama for a very long time. And what I thought we discovered was, oh my God, these terrible people, this undercover, Antifa organization, and they've been following us around and doing all these kind of dodgy things to us. And they're working with the BBC. And the BBC might know how bad these guys really are, and they're turning a blind eye to it. So this is a propaganda machine. They're using it just to shit on the right wing, and this is like, a big scoop. This is what I thought was the big scoop. Um, and then it just became all the footage was in Tommy's hands, and I just didn't know what was going to come out of it, and it just became a really bad attack on John Sweeney.
It was proper James Bond shit, though, wasn't it? You
It
were wearing like
was.
a hidden lapel camera, so it was like it was disguised as a
I
button or
had, yeah,
something, and it was like a cigarette
it
lighter
was,
microphone as well, or something.
yeah. I mean, you
Right.
say it's James Bond, it's probably like Amazon Basics buy kit, but
More Johnny English than James Bond, maybe.
It was funny as well. I think I had a USB stick stuck in. I had a broken leg at the time, and I had like a plaster cast or something, and I had like a something stuck in my boot. It was stupid. It was just like just anything just to make sure that the conversation was recorded. Um, but then yeah, poor old John, because I've still got some of the original recordings somewhere, but I was very not PC the way that I spoke to John Sweeney. I was just very myself, and he was definitely reflecting the way that we were having a laugh. That's the problem. And he was saying I was saying like, yeah, offensive things. He was kind of saying it back. We were obviously drinking a lot. And then Tommy just sort of turned the whole thing into old John Sweeney's terrible, which, yeah, if you read the book, you'll just see my take on it. But I was like, he's not that bad. If anything, he's probably one of the more right-leaning BBC journalists out there, who agrees with us on a lot of this stuff. But yeah, poor old John, caught in the crossfire, you know, I don't know what to tell you. But I think he's doing better now. Like you say, he's in Ukraine fighting Putin.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that, I mean, I know that's what Kaelin's doing now. He's sort of reinventing himself. I love the fact how you described basically that he called J.K. Rowling a cunt and then moved to Ukraine, and that was kind of his
He called her a
career.
putrid cunt, actually.
Was that it? Right, yeah. I remember seeing that at the
He did an
time.
interview with India Willoughby. He did an interview with India Willoughby, who reported J.K. Rowling to the police, and then had loads of J.K. Rowling's fans after him. And there's 14 million people,
Yeah,
so I think he just got drunk and called her a cunt,
a
and
lot of stress.
just exploded.
Didn't go well for him, that for sure. But I mean, you spoke at the start of this conversation about thinking maybe you could dip your toe back into political activism, and kind of decided against it. But you've wrote this book, and that, I suppose, in a lot of ways, it is an act of political activism, covering a lot of these things, giving your perspective and thoughts, and then talking about it publicly. I mean, do you see this now as you drawing a line under this chapter and just kind of a bit of catharsis, or can you see yourself getting back into writing more and making a contribution publicly?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, to be honest, this has been something I've wanted to do for so long. I mean, so long. I've been boring my friends to tears with it for ages. Yeah, I'm writing a book. I'm writing a book. I'm not doing anything else. It's boring. I'm glad it's done now. I don't know if I want to do it for a while. It's like pulling teeth. I'll be honest. It's like, have you ever written one? It's horrible.
You know, it's funny.
It takes ages.
I've had offers to do it, and I've tried a few times, and I've just thought, you know what, I haven't got time. And then I've wrote like a million
Yeah.
articles since. So if I'd just put that effort into writing a book, I'd be published. But no, I mean, yeah, I can imagine it's a lot of work.
I prefer writing articles, to be honest. It's like get to the point, and like, yeah, it's a lot of effort, but I definitely might write something again. And like in terms of political activism, no, I don't think I'm wanted or needed anywhere near any kind of political activism. I'm just online as this kind of like, it's just like mental illness. I just sit around, especially pregnant, I sit around pregnant tweeting like deport everyone, which I'm sure will come up and haunt me one day. I don't know what I'm doing. The Overton window is just shifted though. And I'm
Yeah.
like, this is just how we spoke. And again, I think the other reason, why I consider this like maybe a last bit of activism is because I really wanted everyone. I just wanted there to be a way for people to remember this period of time, because that is how we spoke, and how we speak, how we spoke. I don't know, but it's just this thing of just give it a rest. And I felt like things were getting dusty, and we just needed to kind of just look at it and be like, here's, and we are a strange country. We are the sort of country where we're going to have Tommy Robinsons running around and whatever, and it's just we're goofy, and I just kind of wanted to put that put that down on paper and at least have like a record of it, So I did consider that like my last bit of activism, um, but I just really, really would like Britain to stop being a hellhole purge kind of nightmare, dystopian nightmare. Like until then, I don't know if I can not say anything. I don't know if you feel the same. I can't just go and be a normie again. It's just impossible.
No, I've reached that grumpy point in my life now where there's kind of no filter as well, which doesn't help, I suppose. But yeah, so I mean, like I think I've already said to you off air and privately that I flew through your book. It was one of them rare things where I just couldn't put it down. It was nice, it felt like a trip through memory lane in a lot of ways for me as well, being kind of present at a lot of the things you describe in that book and being invested and kind of following it as well. So congratulations on that. I hope a lot of people read it? I mean, where can people get hold of a copy now if they want to get hold of Hate Club?
Yeah, I don't have any stockists, but I might start looking into it. I don't know how these bloody things work, but it's on Amazon. You can get Kindle hardback and softback, paperback. That's also known as paperback. And I'm currently recording the audiobook, trying to record that while having horrible, what's the word, like heartburn and stuff.
Are you going to do it in your accent, or are you just going to affect like an Indian accent? You're just going to be
Oh,
loose with
mate.
it?
Yeah. No, I do it in my accent. But I was reading some of it today earlier, and I was like, God, like there's a mistake, there's a grammatical, like I'm looking back at the book, like this is goofy. I'm gonna hate this in 10 years and think it's so cringe. But yeah, the audiobook's coming, and it's all just on Amazon. Lucy Brown Hate Club. You can just find it on Amazon.
Perfect. And do you want to direct people towards your social media feeds at this point? Are you looking for a fight, or would you rather not?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm on Twitter as Lucy Marion Brown. I'm on, actually, you can go on hateclub.co.uk. That's like the link to the Amazon page. I'm on Instagram as Sweet Lucy Brown. I think I'm on Amazon. I'm on Instagram, also known as Instagram. Um, but that's it. That's it, to be honest. And yeah, I don't really know if you want to hear me just shouting deport every day. That's Twitter. Um, and yeah, I don't know, but I might log off at some point because I think having a kid is going to be the next bit of activism, isn't it? It's going to
Yeah, I
be
can
trying to raise
imagine.
a kid in this horrible world, in
Well,
this horrible country.
all the best. I wish you all the best with motherhood. And
Thank you.
the book of the launch. It's been nice to catch up. I mean, you've had a unique experience and been through a fair bit that's chronicled, in a lot of detail in the book. So it's very nice to see you come through the other side and doing a great impression of a normal person. By the way, totally convinced. So that's good to see as well. So thank you, Lucy. I really appreciate you speaking to me.
Thank you.